Well, good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. Wednesday, June 17, and this is Q News Tonight, the world's first live LGBTQ daily evening news. It is time to queer up the news. We begin tonight with breaking Q News, an exciting new announcement. An amazing new digital television show has been announced today coming for the LGBTQ community called Gay Town Hall. You participate in the LGBTQ debate. This show will focus on the big topics of the day that are of interest to the LGBTQ community. More than a dozen hosts, including celebrities, famous influencers, drag queens, writers, and authors, a college professor who identifies as a communist, a famous White House visiting gay Trumpster, artist, all segments representing the L, the G, the B, the T, and the Q community, a famous porn star, a famous underwear model, a Miccosukee Native American, and more. The show will premiere at 8:30 p.m. on Thursday, July 2nd, and it's live. Best of all, America, world, you get to participate. The chat is moderated and interesting thread posts are moved right into the screen for host and guests to discuss. Best of all, America, you are allowed to log in and be on camera with the host and participate in the debate and discussion. Nothing like this has ever existed in the LGBT community, and it's very exciting. Over the next 2 weeks, all of these hosts will be introduced to you. Tonight, we introduce to you the first announced host, the current international Mr. Leather, Jack Thompson. Jack made international headlines and history by becoming the first trans person of color to win IML, and he is the current IML. Everyone at Happening Out Television Network is excited to announce this first host of Gay Town Hall. Well, good evening, America. It's 7 p.m. Wednesday, June 17th, 2020, and it is time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories we are going to tell tonight on Q News Tonight. Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Thank you, America, for joining Q News Tonight. We are live. This is a live show, so anything can happen. And tonight we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBTQ community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my co-guest anchor tonight, Misty Eyes, and co-guest anchor David Hopkins. So let's queer up the news. Tonight we bring you beginning with Q headlines. The LGBT community in America is diverse. The LGBTQ community around the world is vast, and we bring you the bullet points of the queer news for today, Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. We begin by queering up health by reporting President Trump now claims there is an AIDS vaccine by incredible scientists. Watch this.
Many other cures and therapeutics over the years. These are the people, the best, the smartest, the most brilliant anywhere. And they've come up with the AIDS vaccine. They've come up with the AIDS, and as you know, there's various things, and now various companies are involved. But the therapeutic for AIDS was a death sentence, and now people live a life with a pill. It's an incredible thing.
In news that came as a surprise to literally anyone who has followed the AIDS crisis for more than a single day, President Trump announced Tuesday that there was an AIDS vaccine available. Unfortunately, that claim is not true at all. Perhaps what is most troubling about this, other than his usual lack of understanding of medical science, is he was touting this to calm nerves about the upcoming COVID-19 vaccine that is being created. If this is any indication, that situation requires close monitoring in the coming months.
Yeah, Trump knows absolutely nothing about medicine. Although I've seen plenty of conspiracy theories now that he's admitting we have a vaccine to HIV/AIDS that's being hidden. I just think he's an idiot.
Someone needs to explain to Donald Trump the difference between a vaccine and a treatment regime.
Honestly, I just think that this news is scary. This came from the President of the United States reporting, we're sitting in the middle of the World AIDS Museum. And the President of the United States does not know that we do not have a vaccine for AIDS. It's scary.
Next week, Queer Up the USA. Trump gives surprising remarks about LGBTQ rights. Watch this.
Mr. Counsel,
Go ahead, please.
Jimmy, reaction to the Supreme Court decisions earlier today about LGBT discrimination, saying that's protected under the Civil Rights Act?
No, they've ruled. I've read the decision, and some people were surprised, but they've ruled, and we live with their decision. That's what it's all about. We live with the decision of the Supreme Court. Very powerful, a very powerful decision, actually. But they have so ruled.
If Donald Trump was bothered by the ruling of the Supreme Court's protection of LGBTQ worker rights, he didn't show it. This comes as a bit of a surprise given the fact that his administration just cited the fact that sex doesn't include sexual orientation and gender identity when rolling back healthcare rights of trans people just last Friday, a position the Supreme Court completely rejected with its ruling Monday.
I'm still super thankful that the Supreme Court ruled the way they did, and honestly, I don't care if he could be fazed by it or not. I just wish that he would come to the conclusion that human rights are for all people.
Of course, we reported the breaking news of the Supreme Court decision, but early days of the report, the most important thing is it was a 6-3 decision, not a 5-4 decision, which means there's some insulation in terms of the strength of the decision, which is what President Trump was commenting on. And that is going to have effects in every other sex-related issue that comes before the court, including the trans medical ban that took place last week.
I personally don't think he was happy about it at all, but at the same time, I don't think he meant to speak on it. It was just word vomit.
Next we queer up religion. Franklin Graham believes the right to fire LGBTQ people is freedom of our nation was founded on. Disgraced anti-LGBTQ preacher Franklin Graham is predictably raging in the wake of the Supreme Court's ruling that people can't be fired for being gay or transgender. To add insult to injury, the court's opinion was penned by Justice Neil Gorsuch, a Trump appointee who sided with the liberal justices. Franklin fumed on Facebook saying, "I believe the decision erodes religious freedoms across the country. People of sincere faith who stand on God's word as their foundation for life should never be forced by the government to compromise their religious beliefs. This is unlikely to be the last word on the matter for Mr. Graham."
So my first observation is the 6-3 vote is the initial early stages of what we should be considering. The secondary stages are exactly what Graham is talking about. The Supreme Court is going to have rollover effects on LGBT rights that are going to affect cakes and everything else. That's what the train that is speeding toward religious rights that Graham is talking about. He has every right to be afraid because the courts likely are going to overturn much of what has happened in the last number of years.
I just wish people like this would sometimes read the Bible they love to tout in public, like Matthew chapter 6 says you're not supposed to.
Yeah, I agree with what Al just said. He does have reason to be concerned. However, it's not telling you you have to hire a gay person. It's telling you that you can't fire them. So he could still stay on his little bigotry and not hire anybody he doesn't want working for him, but he just can't fire them after he did.
That's right. Right to work does not apply after you are hired, which is what the Supreme Court's decision was. We continue in queering up the world tonight by reporting Egyptian LGBTQ activist who went viral with a rainbow flag photo has died by suicide. An Egyptian LGBTQ activist whose image became world famous of herself raising a rainbow flag at a concert in October 2017 was found dead in her Canadian home. According to Al Jazeera, Sarah Hegacy, 30, died by suicide and left a note for her family and friends asking to forgive her. To my siblings, the handwritten note read, "I tried to find redemption and failed. Forgive me. To my friends, the experience was harsh, and I am too weak to resist it. Forgive me. To the world, you were cruel, to a great extent, but I forgive."
It is very difficult to be openly gay and an activist, especially when you come from a deeply religious family. And my heart goes out to her. I was lucky enough to have a accepting family, but many of my friends went through a lot because their families weren't.
This whole story is very painful for me as a survivor of attempted suicide. And it just brings back all the reality of the world is mean and the world is hateful and bullies are real. And I totally understand when she's like saying, look, I failed, but I forgive. And that's a powerful statement.
The suicide, of course, is tragic, but we have to peel and unpeel a bit more than that. Egypt is very difficult in terms of LGBT rights, mostly because of the Muslim religion. Africa is very difficult on LGBT rights. The combination of the two was very difficult. The sad loss here is this was a voice that even in resistance by holding up and raising a rainbow flag gave hope to an entire country. That's how difficult LGBT rights are on the continent of Africa.
Next, we queer up the USA. Joe Scarborough loses his mind on the subject of Mark Zuckerberg. Watch this.
Do something to make Mark Zuckerberg liable and to make Mark Zuckerberg's website liable for the hatred and the lies and the libel that is being spread on his website, then American democracy will remain at risk. Because Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg have proven they are interested in one thing: more than truth, more than the protection of 75-year-old men who were brutalized in a march for black justice, more than the protection of American democracy. Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg are only interested in protecting their billions. And so when you find that a federal officer is mowed down, is killed by a right-wing extremist group, and it is Mark Zuckerberg whose platform is promoting that group by pushing people to that group, then his words are meaningless. He is lying to you. He is lying to himself. He is lying to the American people. And Congress and the next president of the United States need to stand up to the billions and billions of dollars in Silicon Valley and hold these people, hold these billionaires accountable for their lies and for their undermining of American democracy.
Joe Scarborough of MSNBC's Morning Joe has apparently had enough of Mark Zuckerberg. The tirade you just heard comes after months and months of platitudes from the Facebook founder with little to no actions on the platform backing it up. The Facebook CEO has even commented recently that it is not his job to police if people lie or not on his platform, but rather that should be up to the viewer discretion.
I do believe in free speech. I do believe that you should have permission to post what you feel is necessary for your friends, family, followers. I don't think it's fair to tell everyone that he has to police billions of people on his platform.
Bernie Sanders has repeatedly said the exact same thing about billionaires in America. But remember, Joe Scarborough saying almost the exact same thing was a 1994 Republican that was part of the Newt Gingrich revolution in Congress. And now he and Bernie Sanders are saying almost the exact same thing. His words were powerful. I could not take my eyes or ears off of him this morning.
Facebook has become almost a new 4chan, allowing these private groups, which we've reported on multiple times on this show, to build this festering hatred. One of the situations that Joe Scarborough mentions was a recent case where it was found that a federal agent was killed by not one of the protesters, but by a right-wing bigot who had found a Facebook group of like-minded individuals and wanted to stir dissent during the protests.
Now we queer up Vote 2020. McConnell vows to lead GOP even if Republicans lose Senate. Mitch McConnell spent much of his life laboring to become Senate Majority Leader, and for the past 6 years, he's used that position to become one of the most consequential party leaders in decades. But it all could come to an end next January as Democrats' chances of a Senate takeover increase. And the Senate map is so rough for Republicans in 2022 that a loss this cycle could make for a long-term stay in the minority. There is widespread support for McConnell to remain atop the Senate Republican conference, no matter what party status is. This all presumes, of course, that he keeps his seat this November against whichever Democrat challenges him.
We queer up gay culture this evening by reporting on vintage photos of gay couples that will literally take your breath away. The photos that we are now showing were recently collected from One National Gay and Lesbian Archives. The pictures included a gay couple stealing a kiss in a photo booth in 1953, one of the few places they could do it safely. This actually serves as one of the most recent photos in the collection, as many in this collection were taken in the mid to late 1800s, showing a very rare glimpse into the LGBT community of yesteryear. It is proof positive that although we were silenced for many years, that love still found a way to flourish, even in the dark.
Next week, Queer Up Entertainment. J.K. Rowling experiences revolt as staff refuse to work on transphobic author's book. In a tense meeting Monday at the Hachette UK, the publisher of J.K. Rowling's forthcoming children's book, The Ichabod, several employees told management that they were, quote, no longer prepared to work on the book. The protest follows widespread condemnation after the Harry Potter author published a series of transphobic tweets and a lengthy blog post last week, which some have called her transphobic manifesto. It remains to be seen if these views will do anything to halt the publishing of Rowling's book.
Next we queer up health. 4 in 5 LGBTQ identifying people say their mental health has been worse in lockdown. A survey of 2,333 people conducted by OutLive discovered that 4 in 5, 79%, LGBTQ individuals have experienced a plummet in their mental health due to the restrictions in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Before lockdown, 24% of those interviewed said they felt depressed very often or every day, while 34% admitted to experiencing anxiety. During lockdown, these numbers increased to 43% for depression and 50% for anxiety. For young people, loneliness has become a whole other epidemic, as more than 2 in 3 of LGBTQ people under the age of 18 admitted to having thoughts of loneliness and isolation during lockdown.
We queer up sports this evening by reporting the NCAA mulls moving college sports completely out of the state of Idaho because of a law banning trans athletes. The NCAA allows trans athletes to compete in sports, which conflicts directly with Idaho's House Bill 500, which allows schools to subject young athletes to invasive medical examinations in order to sideline them if they are found to be transgendered. In response, the NCAA Board of Governors is considering moving all of its collegiate sporting events outside of the state, which would cost the Gem State tens of millions in revenue. This isn't the first time that the NCAA has stepped in on behalf of the LGBTQ community, and it has fought several laws in the past that discriminated against the community itself.
Next week, Queer Up the USA by reporting the gayest place on planet Earth to get a name change due to racist past. Broward County, home to Q News Tonight, is named after former Florida Governor Napoleon Bonaparte Broward, who served from 1905 to 1908. He's best remembered for draining and developing portion of the Everglades. With the national focus on eliminating racism, a roster of petition signers cited Governor Broward was an avowed racist segregationist. The name that has been floated is Fort Lauderdale County for branding purposes. In news related to this movement, the Quaker Oats Company announced today they are discontinuing their Aunt Jemima line after more than 130 years of production in an attempt to be more racially sensitive.
Tonight, let's catch up on all of the news surrounding COVID-19 with our quarantine quickies. The first story tonight is our daily reporting of coronavirus facts, especially important to the LGBT community. COVID-19 facts for Wednesday, June 17th. We begin by reporting on coronavirus case numbers. Based on the standard acceptance of 7% of population of the LGBT community, the world's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 580,996, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 154,688. We remind you that America is still ground zero of this pandemic. The USA is just 4.4% of the world's population, and today America is 26.6% of all of the world's cases. Next, we report on coronavirus deaths. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 31,286, and America's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 8,342. The USA is 26.6% of all of coronavirus deaths in the world. Next is testing facts. As of today, we have tested 25,744,000 tests have been taken. And because of that, Q News Tonight recognizes our Hall of Fame top states in testing. And as of today, that is number 3, New Mexico, number 2, New York, and number 1, Rhode Island. Q News Tonight also recognizes our Hall of Fame, shame states, doing the worst job in testing. And we remind LGBTQ America, gosh, we hope you don't live in one of these states, which are number 5, Kansas, number 4, Colorado, number 3, Oregon, number 2, Idaho, and virtually no testing has ever been taken in number 1, Puerto Rico.
Quarantine quickies. Montgomery, Alabama City Council votes no on masks. Asked doctor if this was all a hoax. Watch this.
Just posted the headline, Montgomery City Council votes down mask ordinance, sends doctors out in disgust. Jackson Hospital, which is in Montgomery, Alabama, Jackson Hospital pulmonologist William Soliski cleared his throat as he started describing the dire situation created by the coronavirus pandemic in Montgomery to its city council before they voted tonight on a mandatory mask ordinance. He said, quote, "It's been a long day. I apologize." He said, quote, "The units are full with critically ill COVID patients. About 90% of them are Black." He said hospitals are able to manage for now, but it is not sustainable. He said, quote, "This mask slows that down. 95% protection from something as easy as cloth. If this continues the way it's going, we will be overrun."
Even after several doctors spoke on behalf of a common sense mask ordinance in order to slow the spread of COVID-19, it failed to make it past committee in a 4-4 tie. To add insult to injury, before the vote, Brantley Lyons was unmoved by the testimony. To quote, "At the end of the day, if an illness or a pandemic comes through, we do not throw away our constitutional rights out the window." After the vote, the doctors who had testified walked out in clear disgust, with one of them being heard simply muttering, "Unbelievable," at the results of the vote.
Quarantine quickies. Many states see their highest numbers of new COVID-19 cases this last week. Watch this.
The country may be at a crucial point this morning in the coronavirus pandemic, with cases rising again and officials deciding whether to stay the course on reopening. At least 19 states, think about that for a second, 19 states have seen new cases go up in just the last 2 weeks. Anthony?
That's right, Gail. And 6 states reported record increases yesterday. That includes nearly 2,400 new cases in Arizona, more than 2,600 in Texas, and nearly 2,800 new cases in Florida.
Go ahead, Misty.
Several states, including Arizona, Florida, and Texas, are seeing the highest number of new coronavirus cases yet, as they continue to pull back stay-at-home restrictions. In Florida, the spike in cases that doctors had been waiting for in April has finally arrived. The state reported 2,581 new cases on Saturday, with rising numbers in every major city. In both Florida and Arizona, restaurants that had reopened to indoor dining have since closed after employees contracted COVID-19. The Washington Post reported this story.
We're going to end tonight's broadcast of Q News Tonight with what we call the Big Finish. These are fun, short story mentions of LGBTQ news or news with a gay perspective. So here we go. First on Q News Tonight's The Big Finish. First story on The Big Finish. All 15 sex scenes on Sense8 have been ranked.
I'm one of the ones who finds the images and videos you see on the show, and after seeing the images and videos of Sense8, I haven't watched the show yet, but I'm definitely going to.
I highly recommend it. I will tell you, it is crazy intellectually complicated, so it might take a couple episodes to get into it, but you will love it. And the sex scenes are heavy on the orgy part.
I haven't seen it either, and both of you now have me titillated in terms of watching Sense8. I have only gotten through halfway of the listing of these scenes before I ordered the complete 4K Blu-ray version of the entire series, and I think I'm going to have a very eventful weekend. We continue in The Big Finish. Gamers rejoice. Animal Crossing New Horizons is celebrating June Pride Month.
This is not actually being hosted by Disney, but by users and by Global Pride 2020, who we've reported on before on the show.
This story is absolutely beautiful.
I keep hearing about all of these video games, and I just don't know where to start because I really don't know much about it. David, why does the youth of America keep letting me down and not explaining this? Because first they don't vote, now they don't teach me about the gamies, or is that what this is all about? I'm confused. The Big Finish. Gays for Gorsuch t-shirts are now a thing. Gorsuch.
You know, while he did a great thing on Monday, I'm not ready to celebrate him yet. You know, a broken clock is right twice a day.
Correct. However, we see you, Gorsuch, and we thank you. When we, as a minority, marginalized community, when somebody is allying or advocating for us, we see you, and we thank you for showing your support.
Yeah, I'm not thanking Trump. I just want to give everyone a reminder. President Obama had a Supreme Court nominee who probably would have voted this way too, but he got screwed out of his nomination by the Senate. So I'll pass on giving or purchasing any of Gorsuch merchandise. In The Big Finish, No Context Wednesday, Florida police are on record saying donuts are more effective than guns at fighting bears. I don't know where I got the story.
Are we talking about the big hairy men bear, or are we talking about wild bears? Either way, sugar's very addictive.
Very funny. Enough that we would be talking on either animal or the type that David hangs around with. Which animal are we talking about? I'm unclear. And I don't even get an answer because David's mouth is full of donuts. The Big Finish. New owners of Grindr are confirmed to be straight?
So are half the bottoms that hit me up on Grindr.
Oh, that's actually true. But wow, seriously? And you know, if they are straight, I really hope they're thinking about the gay dollar when they vote in November.
I give this a total of 3 months before all of those hot shirtless guys get to them and they leap from their closets as gay as all get out. And that's what's going to happen at Grindr. The Big Finish. Happy 77th birthday to Barry Manilow.
Her name was Misty. She was a showgirl with sunglasses in her hair and a dress cut down to there.
Copacabana. I also like, I write the love songs that make the whole world sing. I like Barry Manilow. Happy birthday.
You know, half of our audience does not even know who Barry Manilow is. Seriously.
'Cause they're
Barry
children.
Manilow is proof that it is never too late to come out of the closet. And if you know Barry Manilow, it's incredible that he was in the closet for so long. Be your authentic self.
They thought Versace was straight too.
And I hope that we do a good job here at Q News tonight to help make it okay for everyone else to not wait as long to come out as Barry Manilow did. But happy birthday anyway.
Yeah, happy birthday. And that is today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Remember, if it's important to the LGBTQ community, it's important to Q News Tonight. But you must help us. Please click subscribe on YouTube and share this news.
We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. This is the only source of live LGBTQ news in the entire world. Your community needs your support.
You are not alone. We will get through this crisis.
We are here with you, and this is Q News Tonight.
So thank you for joining us. I'm Al Ferguson, and on behalf of Misty Eyes and David Hopkins, we will see you daily and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night.